Okay, so when you think about the most important organs in your body, what comes to mind? Probably your heart, maybe your brain, right? But what about that quiet, tireless worker tucked away in your abdomen? Well, today, we're going to take a deep dive into the body's real unsung hero, the liver. And when I say powerhouse, I mean it. Medical science has identified over 500, yeah, you heard that right, 500 essential functions that the liver performs. We're talking about everything from processing the food you eat and filtering out toxins to making sure your blood clots properly. It's like a chemical processing plant, a storage unit, and a defense system, all rolled into one incredible package.
So come on, let's get to know the hardest working organ you probably barely even think about. We're about to go on a journey to really understand this crucial part of our anatomy. We'll explore how it works when it's healthy, and then what happens when this incredible system starts to break down.
All right, first things first, let's get our bearings. Where exactly is this thing, and what does it look like on a large scale? So, your liver is this big, dark, reddish-brown organ, and it's tucked away in the upper right part of your belly, right under your diaphragm. It weighs about 3 pounds, which actually makes it the largest internal organ you've got.
But here's what's really wild. Its relationship with your blood. You see, the liver is so central to everything that at any given moment, it holds about 13% of your body's entire blood supply. Think about that. That's a huge amount, and it gives you a clue about the massive scale of its operations.
Okay, so that brings up a really fascinating biological puzzle. To do its job, the liver needs two different things: a constant supply of oxygen to stay alive, and all the raw materials it needs to process from your food. So, how does it get all that blood from two different places at the same time?
Well, the solution is just a brilliant piece of biological engineering. It has a dual blood supply. You've got the hepatic artery, which brings in high-pressure, oxygen-rich blood straight from the heart. That's what keeps the liver's own cells running. But then, at the very same time, you've got the portal vein. This one delivers low-pressure blood that's jam-packed with nutrients, and yeah, toxins too, from your stomach and intestines. It's a genius design, isn't it? One pipeline for fuel and another for all the raw materials it needs to work on.
And here's how it works mechanically. Both of these blood vessels, the artery and the vein, enter the liver at one central spot called the hilus. From there, they start branching out, and eventually that oxygen-rich blood and the nutrient-rich blood mix together, all ready to be processed.
Okay, so we've seen the big picture. Now let's zoom in, I mean way in, to see the microscopic machinery where the real magic happens. So once that blood enters the liver, those main vessels just branch out again and again and again. It creates this incredibly dense network, almost like the roots of a massive tree. This whole intricate system is designed to do one thing: get blood to every single nook and cranny of the organ.
And what's the final destination for all that blood? Well, it's millions, literally millions, of these tiny hexagonal units called liver lobules. The best way to think about these is that each one is like a single self-contained little processing factory.
And if we zoom in even further, we finally get to the factory floor, the assembly line itself, the sinusoid. These are super tiny blood channels that run right through those hexagonal lobules. It's right here, inside the sinusoids, where the blood comes into direct contact with the liver cells to be filtered and processed.
So how does this filtering actually happen? This is the amazing part. The sinusoids are lined with these incredible cells called LSECs. And what makes them so special is that they're just full of thousands of tiny pores. They're called fenestrae, that act like a super precise sieve. This structure lets all the good stuff, like plasma and nutrients, pass through to the liver cells, but it keeps the bigger things, like blood cells, out. It's just an incredibly elegant and crazy effective filtration system.
Okay, so we've seen this beautifully designed system when it's working perfectly. But what happens when this delicate machinery gets hit with chronic, relentless damage day after day?
You know, the liver has this remarkable ability to repair itself, but it's not invincible. When it's continuously injured, whether that's from a virus or alcohol or something else, it triggers this constant cycle of inflammation and repair. And that can have absolutely devastating consequences.
This constant damage leads to a condition called cirrhosis. Now, it's not really a disease in itself, but more like the end result of many kinds of chronic liver damage. Basically, those functional hexagonal lobules we just looked at, they get broken down and replaced by hard, useless scar tissue. This scarring completely messes up the liver's entire architecture, blocking blood flow and pretty much crippling all of those 500+ functions we talked about.
So what's causing this in the US? Well, the main culprits are things like viral infections, think hepatitis C and B, alcoholic liver disease, and something we're seeing more and more of, a condition linked to obesity and diabetes called non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, or NASH for short.
But listen, here's a really critical point of hope. For the longest time, everyone thought cirrhosis was a one-way street, completely irreversible. But now we know that's not totally true. As the latest research shows, liver fibrosis is a dynamic process and that even early cirrhosis is reversible. What that means is, if you can treat the underlying cause of the injury, cure the hep C or stop drinking, the liver can actually heal itself, and that early scarring can reverse. That's a huge deal.
Okay, so this naturally raises a key question for doctors. How do you measure just how bad the damage is? Well, to figure out the severity and decide on treatment, clinicians rely on a couple of specific scoring systems.
The two big ones are the child poo and the MELD score. So the child poo score is a bit subjective. It mixes lab results with things a doctor can see, like how much fluid is built up in the abdomen. The MELD score, on the other hand, is purely objective. It only uses 3 specific lab values. And because it's so objective, it's become the standard for predicting short-term mortality and, most importantly, for prioritizing patients who are waiting for a liver transplant.
All right, let's wrap this up. What really makes liver disease so incredibly dangerous isn't just the damage itself. It's the silent, insidious way it progresses.
Get ready for this number, because it is truly shocking. Of the roughly 630,000 Americans living with cirrhosis, less than 1/3 of them even know they have it. How is that possible? Well, the liver is so resilient, so good at its job, that it can keep functioning without showing any major symptoms until the damage is incredibly advanced. In this silence, it has life or death consequences. The stakes could not be higher. A person can live with what's called compensated cirrhosis, that means without obvious symptoms, for a median of 12 years. But once the liver just can't keep up anymore and symptoms finally appear, a state called decompensation, that median survival plummets to just 2 years. It tells you everything you need to know. Early detection is everything.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty sobering thought. Here we have this organ that performs over 500 functions, that filters our blood, that can literally regrow itself, and yet maybe its greatest threat isn't a virus or a toxin. Maybe its greatest vulnerability is just our own inattention, our own lack of awareness until it's already too late.